So here we go. All right, here we go again. Aloha, and thank you everyone for joining in for today's Paradigm Shift Circle discussion, whether you're listening to this live or the recording in the future. Today's topic is this reality a simulation? And of course, this is one of those topics that I know a lot of people have had a lot of conversations about already, and it's one that I'm definitely excited to be able to dive into a little bit more. So just before we do that, I'll just do a quick introduction. The Paradigm Shift Central Circle discussions, we do these every Wednesday at 4 p.m. EDT, and we do these through our Discord server, where for anybody listening to this, even in the future, feel free to join in for future circle discussions. Make sure you guys are connected to our Discord server. The link for that's in the info for this video. And with that said, we will just go over some basic introductions and make sure that you can also check out the previous recordings for this and other circles on Spotify, Paradigm Shift Radio. So I know a lot of you may be new to this, so definitely go check us out on Spotify for more episodes there, as well as YouTube Skull Babylon for additional recordings and podcasts that we do here on the regular. So again, Paradigm Shift Central, this is a community about bringing together people who are passionate about being able to help assist with the shift in consciousness. And one of the exciting ways that we do that is by being able to have circle discussions where we get to be able to explore some of the philosophical, metaphysical topics that really ignite our spirit and open our mind. So for those of you on TikTok or on Instagram, please feel free to jump over to YouTube. That's where the primary broadcast is. The link for that is in my profile. So if you guys are tuned in on Instagram or on TikTok, that's the secondary feed. Click the link in my profile and you will be able to join in on YouTube. And if you want to join on air for the Discord, then yeah, feel free to do that as well. So with that said, I'm just going to go over some basic introductions for the circles, and then we'll get right into today's topic. So thank you so much, everyone, for joining today's Paradigm Shift Circle discussion. Before we get started, I'm just going to go over a few introductory rules and guidelines. So Paradigm Shift Central Circles are an intentional sacred space created to host inspirational conscious conversations to nurture our spirit and build community. Circles are sometimes recorded. At the end of a circle, a screenshot will be taken to show the names of those in attendance, but you're welcome to opt out of that if you wish. We will let you know beforehand when that screenshot will be taken. Please respect the instructions of the facilitators of the circle. Please respect the intention of the space. Please respect your fellow members. You're welcome to simply listen in or to speak in the circle. To step on stage and speak in the circle, please use your hand raise button to wait to be brought on stage by a facilitator. Once on stage, please wait for the facilitator's prompt to speak. If you are already on stage and wish to speak next, please blink your microphone by clicking the mute and unmute button a few times and wait for the facilitator's prompt. Circles generally go up to the hour. We will conclude with gratitude at 5 minutes too. Please tell your friends and invite others who may be interested. And if you have not already, please feel free to check out the Patreon, where we have our Patreon membership, where you can join further into the community and get access to exclusive events. And your support there helps support the creation of these circles and other events for the community. Thank you so much for joining and contributing, and enjoy. So with that said, let me just make sure that we got everything in place and we are all ready to go. And yeah, I'm gonna get things rolling here. We do have our good buddy Sunny, one of our Patreon supporters as well, who is in the circle. And then for those of you, again, who are tuned in on YouTube, go ahead and drop some 1111s just to be able to confirm that you guys can hear us okay. Me and Sunny will get things started. And then for anybody else who wants to join in as we go, we will continue the conversation. I mean, I am fully capable of being able to just kind of, and again, with Sunny's help, really just being able to talk about this for like hours on end. So if we have a small audience today, that's a small circle today, that's totally fine. I'm excited to be able to dive into this equally as much. So, all right. So with that said, I'm going to dive into this, and then Sunny, I'll pass it over to you. So is this reality a simulation? Now, this is a really, really exciting question. And it's interesting because, you know, I think when we think of this question, there's a lot of correlations we can draw from it, and especially with the Matrix movie suddenly coming back into the consciousness of a lot of people, with the trailer for the Matrix 4 recently having been released, and people talking about that, and even hearing, you know, some big names talking about the idea of like, is this reality a simulation? You know, people like Elon Musk and all of these conversations, it's really popped up within the consciousness of the collective within the past few years, like literally just within the past couple of years. However, this concept of is this reality a simulation is actually quite ancient. This is actually something that, if we're drawing reference, could be something that a lot of people would be able to recognize it through the allegory of Plato's cave. And so the allegory of Plato's cave, this is like something that really paints the idea of what is a simulation. And so before we even get into whether or not this reality is a simulation, and again, I'll just talk here for a moment and then we'll pass it to Sunny, and then we'll go back and forth. And Wheezy, if you want to raise your hand, feel free to do that and join in at any point. So again, in the question of what is, is this reality a simulation, we also have to be able to ask the question within the question, what is reality? And also, what is a simulation? So a simulation, right now we're kind of referring to it from the perspective of like, oh, is this a computer program? Is this a video game? Like, what is this? However, simply put, I think we can really just simplify it by being able to look at it as the idea that a simulation more or less is an experience that one can place themselves within that isn't the full reality, meaning it's either a fabricated representation of a reality that one interacts with, or it is a completely artificial construct in which one reacts, one functions within as well. And so, even when you think of the movies like The Truman Show, like in The Truman Show, like that was a version of a simulation. He wasn't inside of a computer that we know of. However, the world itself was not the full truth of what it actually was. The way it was presenting itself was not actually what was like kind of behind the surface, like behind the curtain, so to speak. So even, you think of like other metaphors where you can think of like the Wizard of Oz, and you think of like the wizard with the Wizard of Oz, and the way how he was presenting himself, like that in itself could be thought of as a simulation. It wasn't necessarily the true version of who the wizard was. It was a projection of something. So with that said, just kind of diving into this again, going back to the allegory of Plato's cave, and I'll just hit upon this real quick and I'll pass it to Sunny because there's a lot for us to be able to explore here. The allegory is Plato's cave. Just to summarize it again, this is more or less like an ancient version of what we recognize within the movies of the Matrix. And Campton, welcome as well. Feel free to raise your hand if you guys want to come up on stage at any point, and we'll bring you guys up. So again, with Plato's cave, it's basically this idea that there are these people who are inside of a cave, and they're basically stuck in these chairs, and they're looking towards a wall. And then behind these people, there are lamps or lanterns rather. And there are people who are passing between the lanterns, between the light source and the wall. And basically the light source is casting a shadow of these people onto the wall that the people in the chairs are looking at. The people in the chairs, they've never been outside this cave in the concept of this story, and they see the shadows on the wall, and to them, since they don't know what's creating those shadows, that is their reality. That is their reality is based on the limit of their understanding, which I think is a really, really interesting thing that we'll get back to a little bit later. So for them, this idea of not fully knowing the bigger picture, their reality of simply seeing beings and shapes and objects as shadows on a wall is the entirety of their reality. However, when one of those prisoners suddenly escapes and he sees, he's like, oh my goodness, like these are just shadows. Like there's actually real people. There's actually something outside of the cave. Suddenly the world opens up. Something else there's more to this reality than meets the eye. And again, that's where within the context of the movie The Matrix, this is what we see within the story. Neo is in the simulation of the Matrix. And again, the simulation of the Matrix is just a construct. However, it's not a true representation of what the world really is. Now, in that case, the real world is actually a much kind of crummier place, being controlled by robots and machines and everything like that. So the simulation in itself isn't always necessarily like a bad thing, Like what if in some circumstance there is this reality where maybe there's some crazy post-apocalyptic scenario and the world outside has kind of been blown to smithereens, and then people in the future decide to inject themselves into a computer simulation in order to be able to relive an experience that their soul can still grow through. However, this experience is an artificial construct of something based on an interpretation of the past. Now, who's to say that's not even what we're in right now, right? So is this reality a simulation? My simple answer is yes. However, that doesn't mean that it's any less real. And I'll get more into that a little bit later, but just real quick, and I'll say this, I'll pass it to Sunny, and then we'll pass it to Campton. My interpretation of this reality being a simulation is pointing towards this reality, pointing towards the idea that how we perceive this reality is not the full truth of what it actually is. We're seeing the shadows on the wall. We're not actually seeing the full truth of what this is. And if you start looking into quantum mechanics and looking into metaphysics, you start to realize that there's actually like legitimate truth to this. You know, we are perceiving reality through a series of something that we can relate to as like filters, where what we are seeing is a constructed version of reality that is it's not just that the reality is designed, it's that our the way we interpret it is designed or programmed or conditioned in such a way that allows us to be able to function within this reality so that we can drive cars and live our lives and walk through the street. However, if we were to actually see what this reality really is, quote unquote, like beyond the simulatedness of it, what it actually is something much more hyperdelic is the word that I use. And that's not even a real word. That's just a word that I use because it makes sense to me. Like it's a combination of like hyper and psychedelic. It's like hyperdelic. The reality of this reality is that what there actually is kind of outside of our perception when we have the filters on from our baseline is that this reality is an ocean of energy, is one of the best ways I can describe it. If you could see this reality for what it actually is like this ocean of energy. It's like this infinite code matrix of golden light, very much like the code of the matrix. However, that's not how we see it, because if we were to see it, it'd probably make us go crazy, quite frankly. So in that degree, we'll talk more about it later. Is this reality a simulation? Apparently it is. But like I said, that doesn't make it any less meaningful. It doesn't make it any less real. It's a simulation with a purpose. So what is that purpose? We'll talk more about that a little bit later. Sonny, if you're ready, I'd love to be able to pass it over to you. Sonny, if you want to just be able to jump in, if you got your mic unmuted, go right ahead, and welcome to today's circle. And go ahead and answer the question. Is this reality a simulation? What do you think, Sonny?
Yeah, thanks for hosting this, Mystic. I love talking about simulation. It's always fun. Could talk about this for hours with my buddies, but it sure does look like this reality could be a simulation, and I kind of want to approach it from a numbers perspective. And I feel like we didn't invent numbers. We discovered numbers. For example, like 1 plus 1 will always equal 2 in this little simulation that we're in. And so if we discover numbers, then how did it get there? Because obviously we didn't create it. It was put in there by some outside source or entity. And that brings me along to another point is like numerical synchronicities, like seeing like could these numbers be the coding to the simulation? And by observing these synchronicities, these numerical synchronicities, could that be you observing the code of the simulation? What do you guys think?
Sonny, thank you for jumping in there, and we can pass it over to Campton. And I will say that within this discussion, I love to be able to kind of dive into examples within this reality that kind of point to the idea of it being a quote unquote simulation. And again, like I don't, it's not even like simulation doesn't degrade what this is. Like I think simulation is just pointing to the dynamics of this reality, and the dynamics of this reality is based on like non-linear time and the language of symbols and synchronicities. And this is where there's weird phenomena that we experience within this reality. Again, quantum entanglement, deja vu, dreams. You start looking at dreams, it starts really, again, kind of like giving us an opportunity to start to see this reality from a bigger picture. So Campton, let's pass it over to you, and feel free to just kind of jump in with your own thoughts, any replies for Sonny. And again, for those of you on YouTube, if you guys want to jump in on the Discord and add your voice, feel free to go ahead. Campton, if you're ready, feel free to unmute your microphone and go ahead and share. Is this reality a simulation? What do you think, Campton?
Yeah, it is. So both great points by Spidey over there and Sunny. Love what you guys have to say as always, my brothers, mothers. Yeah, this is absolutely a simulation. So I approach this in many ways. You can actually logically conclude everything that you can spiritually experience. And a lot of people are afraid to attempt to do that because of the articulation barrier, and not everybody is obsessed with doing that. So essentially one of the main ways that this is a simulation is that given enough time, awareness will become infinitely intelligent. So we're both at the highest and lowest spectrum of intelligence, or there can be that anyway. So essentially, in this era, we'll be able to create a computer that's on the level of the human brain, which will then be able to innovate on itself, and those innovations will be able to innovate on themselves until it reaches maximum possible intellect and all of the energy in the universe. So essentially, it will create many universes in which this is the experience, locking yourself down into a 95-year shot at existence to slow down eternity and have a deeply nuanced, emotionally charged, and spiritually transformative experience like this. So in that way, with the interpretation of the English word simulation, it kind of is. It's not completely, because we are divine and beyond intelligent. And this seemed to be the smartest thing to do anyway, which is to sort of dilate the lens of our intelligence to have, again, that spiritually nuanced experience for the growth of our individuation of infinity dwelling with inside eternity, right? There's both everything to do and forever to do it, so your life is actually inevitable. But my favorite one is obviously the computer thing, where we'll be able to create a human brain that'll be able to innovate on itself, so on and so forth, until it logically becomes the smartest thing with infinite energy in the entire universe. Hey, wait, infinite energy. There it is. There's Sonny. He happened. He's here. Again, it happened again, guys. Infinite energy. So let me think if there's anything else I wanted to slip in there. Oh yeah, this is a giant learning machine, right? This is a simulation to increase the velocity and intensity of our intelligence. I don't know why I said velocity. It just sounded like a cool word to say just then. But yeah, well, velocity actually, yeah, the pace of your evolution is increased by each paradox that you untwist within the deeper machinations of your psychology. Again, just a word jumble, but it really is just so fun to say, and it actually does illuminate the truths of this experience. We can unkink the paradoxes of our psychology to, infuse higher intelligence into our form and emanate that outwards in whatever we create, whether it's through language or form. And I think it's a beautiful experience that we can learn to enjoy, including all the suffering, which is sort of the terms and conditions for our dream, right? We have an idea of how we want to dwell within eternity, and then we run into our karma, which is a misconception about the nature of actions and consequences. And we're continually afraid to act. So we continually have to encounter that fear, do it while afraid, to ascertain the confidence of what's on the other side of our brain's ability to simulate an accurate reality. So in that way, we're always living within a simulation. We're always just guessing. All of the beliefs that we have about ourselves are temporary analysis of certain information that we interpret or that we allowed another person to interpret, which can cause an identity structure. They're right. They know me deeper than I know myself. I need to shut down every sense of instinct and intuition so that I can conform to the laws, or the apparent laws of this society that we live in, the muck. So we're simulating ourselves out of the muck and then becoming a liaison of light to infuse that into every soul that is willing, open, and listening. Yeah. So that'll do me.
Awesome, Campton. Love being able to listen to the velocity of your wisdom there, and thank you, fellow liaison of light. I feel like that's like the phrase of the day for today. I know you posted about that earlier, so absolutely, dude. Awesome. Kiwi, I can see you in the chat. If you want to jump in and raise your hand at some point, please, by all means, go right ahead, dude, and we'll be happy to bring you up on stage. So again, there's layers to this conversation. Like I said, this is a conversation I've had many times with friends, and I think our understanding of this conversation actually evolves as we consciously kind of go through our journey, as we consciously evolve. And again, I think it's not so much whether or not this is a simulation. I think it's really about our relationship to the concept of what simulation is. And the word simulation is such a limited human word in comparison to the grand scope of what this reality is. Again, I think when we think simulation, suddenly it becomes almost like less than, as if, it's like, oh, it's something inorganic, it's inauthentic. However, again, in the concept of a simulation, even just going back to the basics of the definition of the word simulation, it's basically, again, literally just kind of like reading the definition here, the representation of the behavior or characteristics of one system through the use of another system. So again, in the terms of video games, you're simulating the experience of racing a car around a track. Are you actually racing a car around a track? No, you're using a system to replicate the properties and the dynamics and the attributes and the relationships of different icons that are representing the identity of these original icons, of these original things, such as cars and racetracks and properties, and then you run them through a system, and lo and behold, it simulates the experience. It's not the same experience, but it simulates the experience. When you start looking at this reality, one of the things that you'll come to notice is that this reality has this pattern where it's basically like things within things within things within things, layers within layers within layers within layers, circles within circles within circles within circles, realities within realities within realities within realities. This is like a pattern that you can literally observe, and you can observe it even through like sacred geometry, the way how like the Star of David, a star tetrahedron, like that shape, it like fits inside of itself. The hexagram shape fits inside of itself infinitely upon infinity. And so, when we think about this reality, I think we have to humbly acknowledge the fact that we don't really understand what this reality is. So who the hell are we to be the authority to say what it is and what it isn't? I think all we can do is say, here's my best guess. From my limited human perspective, here's what it perceives to be. Here's what I think it is. And I think, again, from the human mind, it can be a little bit shattering to our ego to think that this reality is a simulation, and to perhaps think that we've been existing in it for so long and have yet to fully realize it. We're just like, no, if it was a simulation, I would notice because I'm a human being. We think we're so freaking special, and we are 100%. We are. And so again, for me, I think that even when you start looking into the dynamics of dreams and things like that, you get into this concept of, like, is this reality a dream within a dream within a dream within a dream? And so when you start talking about consciousness, you literally start talking about planes and dimensions. And when you start looking at the dream space, it's obvious that there is another dimension. And with the dream space, again, and we were talking about this in our dream discussion circle that we had on the weekend for our Patreon members, where one of the ways I explain it, I say, like, the dream space is, in my opinion, in my perspective, in my best guess, closer to where we are from. So the dream realm is actually like where we originate from, or something of the sorts. And then we come into this dimension. We like this is like one reality kind of like within a relative like space of that dream dimension. So it's like a circle, it's like a bubble within a bubble within a bubble. And where we are right now, we're just in the bubble that happens to have these very particular dynamics and properties that we associate to in terms of time and density, and it allows us to feel and to touch and to experience things in this linear way. However, you go up one reality, you go up one dimension into the dimensions of the dream space, and suddenly the properties there are a little bit different. So in that sense, like, is this reality a quote unquote simulation? Again, I don't even think simulation is the best word. I just think that this reality is a layer within a bigger reality, is the very simple way that I could explain it. Now, I will say this, and I'll pass this over to whoever wants to go next. So Sunny or Campton, if you want to blink your mic, just let me know if you're ready to go next. Go ahead and do that now. And Kiwi, again, if you want to jump in at some point, feel free to do so. And again, people on YouTube, if you guys want to jump in, if you're feeling inspired, I'm reading your comments on the YouTube chat. We'll try to read some of those on air. Please feel free to join into the Discord and share your voice on air. So this is something that I have, how do I say this properly? I'm actually hesitant to be able to say this because I want you to be able to kind of like not believe me. I don't want you to believe me. I don't want to say this with such validity that you actually believe me. I'll just propose it as a hypothesis, and perhaps you will come to a conclusion on your own. Based on my experiences and connecting the dots and and people that I know that know things that are above top secret and so forth and so on, crazy synchronicities that have brought information into my lap, there are people within this world who hold on to the knowledge that this reality may or may not be, think for yourself here, and shout out to dogs in the background if you can hear them, that this reality may or may not be something that was actually created by beings that are billions of years older than us. Whatever we are in right now is actually something that was created by beings billions of years older than us. And if you think about that for a second, that may be a pretty crazy idea, but it's not honestly incredibly far-fetched, especially when you look at the way technology is evolving right now. And this is a conversation that I know people have heard before, where it's like, wow, look at how far we've come in video games, from Super Nintendo to N64 to GameCube to suddenly virtual reality, so forth and so on. Where are we going to be in another 50 years? Where are we going to be to the point where, we're basically already at like Ready Player One? And then eventually it's going to get to the point where, it goes forth and so on. So is this reality something that was created by beings billions of years older than us? Yeah, perhaps it is. And if that's the case, I don't think that means that this reality is any less important or valuable. To me, this conversation, I look at this question as something that is lived. And I look at it as something that continues to open me up to the magic of this reality. Like, that's the thing. Whether or not this reality is a quote unquote simulation based on the language that you're using, what is true is that this reality is undeniably incredibly beautiful and magical and psychedelic and mysterious, and you are a part of it. So whether or not, see, that's the thing, humans, we always try to understand things in some sort of like finite grasp, but I think this reality literally works in a way where the true of the truth will always be beyond our grasp. I literally do not think that we as humans are capable of fully understanding what this reality fully is on like higher dimensional levels. We can conceptualize it, but even still, it's actually like just as we start to like figure it out, like the reality itself will actually like evolve beyond our grasp, so to speak. So if that makes sense. But yeah, this reality, I think it is something quite dynamic, something quite beautiful, whether it is a simulation or not. We're still here. And this is the one thing that I'll just add. And I said this before in a TikTok video. In terms of what is real, what is reality, to me, if the soul can learn from it, if the soul can grow from it, that makes it real. So whether it's a dream, whether it's something where even you're watching a movie and you really deeply connect with the experience of the character in the movie, very much like a simulation. You kind of project yourself into the experience of the movie. You're simulating the experience of the character. The hero goes through the hero's journey, and suddenly you come out the movie on the other end, just like waking up from a dream, and you feel like you went through it too. If you can go through that in a way where you feel transformed by moving through it, then that to me makes it real. It makes it real because it allows us to grow. And so in that case, like reality is a very, very malleable and subjective thing. So is this reality created by something much, much older than us from some higher dimensional perspective? Probably. It probably is. The concept of this just naturally evolving in some sort of like spontaneous organic way could still be a possibility. And I think if anything, this reality is like created to do that as well. It's weird. It's kind of weird. You can feel your brain kind of get to a point where it's like, oh, my brain can like, it almost like hits a threshold. It hits the ice wall, the metaphysical ice wall. And we'll talk more about the ice wall in a second probably. But yeah, if this reality was created for a purpose, what is the purpose? To grow something, to grow souls, to grow experience, to incubate experience for the birth of consciousness, so to speak. So, but anyways, let's keep passing things around. Like I said, I love this topic. I'm excited to be able to explore more. Infinite Energy, aka Sunny, we'll pass it over to you when you're ready. Go right ahead, dude.
Yeah, so I just wanted to bounce off of what you were talking about, how if like an advanced being did create this simulation reality, whatever we exist in, it wasn't just done just for gigs, just for laughs, like there is, if a very intelligent race or beings created this simulation, they did it for a very important reason, to be able to grow and expand their own wisdom and knowledge and experience what it's like to be a human. And there's many, like in this primitive reality, like there's so many good things that we can experience here. We get to experience love emotionally. We get to experience love emotionally and experience a very wide range of emotions, which I feel is pretty unique to this simulation reality, whatever we exist in. And there's just so much to learn here and so much to grow from. And we get to experience ourselves cut off from our infinite intelligence that we are a part of. And I just feel like it's pretty freaking cool, you know?
Absolutely, dude. And yeah, you can tell that whatever this reality is, there's definitely a purpose to it. And like you said, I think a big part of that is to kind of go through this journey of forgetting and remembering. So yeah, man, like this reality has an unlimited abundance of mystery and knowledge for us to be able to explore. And the fact that things like astral projection and lucid dreaming and psychedelics and DMT and all these things, the fact that those things exist within this reality should definitely kind of like point people towards the possibility that there's more to this reality than meets the eye. So there were some people that, again, I think, again, it's not even so much a question of like, is this a simulation, quote unquote. It's more so like also the discussion of like, why are some people so desperate to cling onto a comprehension of what they think this reality is. Like, some people are so attached to feeling like they need to know. It's like no, it has to be this because this is what they taught me in school, and if they didn't teach me something true, then maybe they lied about something else. And it really kind of like goes through this upheaval of, it's like taking the red pill, and it makes you question a lot of things. So I think for some people, this reality won't be a simulation for them. From their perspective, this reality simply just is. It's quirks and quarks, and Neil deGrasse Tyson can tell me everything about it, and that's okay for me. However, for those of us who want to be able to go deeper down the rabbit hole, it will reveal itself to us. This reality, whatever it is, it's a perception based hologram. To some of us, it will be quite solid and static for their entire life. To others, it will continue to evolve into something much more malleable as well. So, Craig, I can see you in the chat. If you want to raise your hand and jump on stage, please, by all means, go right ahead. And Campton, if you want to jump in next, we can pass over to you, and then we'll pass over to Craig shortly after. So, Campton, you want to jump right in? Go right ahead if so.
Sure.
Yeah, so another crazy thought about higher beings of whatever, however you relate to that, whether it's spirit guides or extraterrestrials, whatever you discover about yourself and the nature of the universe, they already knew that whole time and were watching you. So it's like, it's just that crazy thing. It's like every time you come to a realization, you're like, oh, they knew this the whole time. They could have just told me. So it's like we're both, as this human, the most insignificant thing in the entire universe and the most significant thing in the entire universe. And it's crazy. And that paradox is fertile ground for ideas. And I think everything is ideas, everything is an idea. And truth is on a spectrum, right? Things can be more or less true. And that would be on a spectrum, right? So confidence is ascertained when you're closer to the truth of the situation, when you've collected the information that justifies your confidence in the idea, right? Even when you're afraid, you have to embody confidence so that you can get to the other side of the situation with the information that actually emboldens that confidence and no longer triggers the fight or flight response. And even then, that confidence doesn't guarantee you're doing the absolutely ultimate thing, because you'll still learn while being confident by jumping through those hoops of fear. So the fact that higher beings of intelligence know everything means that, again, we are both incredibly insignificant, and significant that we're being allowed to go through the process and we're not being snuffed out by some higher being. I think the more quote or air quotes intelligent you get, the more loving and connected with truth you get. I think the bad aliens are super advanced in material, but haven't advanced in at that soul emotional level. So they could pop in and out and teleport all over the place, but why? Like, for what? And that brings the questions like, where's their intelligence guiding them? How are they evolving? I believe for humans right now, we live in kind of a unique, special oasis type place, and it can be super quaint. Human life can be incredibly quaint. This conception that we have of negativity and suffering and woe is the cultural imprint that we receive early on in childhood that contextualizes our unfolding as a social being. And not that context isn't always the prettiest. But once we run into the inadequacy of our society intentionally through meditation, altered states, and things like that, the more we loosen our love and our creative energies from the grip of collective woe and suffering, and we become a symbol an eminence of change and what's possible for our fellow person. So you only have to be a role model of love, and that can come out in any flavor that you want. So you don't need to know a lot of math to change anything. You can just say hello, and that smile that you give somebody has been the culmination of every endeavor that you've sought after to develop your spirituality and infuse that into this beautiful gift of biology that we get to experience life with.
Beautiful. Campton, thank you. Thank you again. Wonderfully said. And Craig, I can see you up on stage. Let me just do a quick, I'm just going to make sure that your microphone's muting. Craig, just go ahead and just say hello. Just make sure your mic's working. You can just test your mic real quick. Give it a go, Craig, if it's working. We'll see. All right, Craig, try again, Craig. We'll just figure it out real quick. And then I was just going to add in one quick point. So try unmuting now again. You may even need to drop out and drop back up, Craig. Sometimes it does that. So even just kind of like leave the stage, come back in and do that real quick. And so, you know, again, in terms of this this reality being a simulation, this to me, it really starts to open up the realms of possibility of what we can actually do here within this reality. Again, you know, kind of going back to this idea of like this reality is something more akin to a dream space. It's a dream within a dream. So again, you know, I don't, it's interesting because it's like, what does the word simulation even mean after a certain point? I think it's kind of, if it's not a simulation, what does that mean? If it's not a simulation, what does that mean? Does that mean that everything is like much more stiff and static and rigid? However, regardless of whether or not that is or isn't what it means, the fact is that this reality is much more malleable, fluid, and flexible. And that's where, again, you know, even bringing Craig up and stuff like that, I can't help but think about, you know, concepts within the movie The Matrix and Star Wars where, you know, we talk about our connection with the Force, and we talk about things like psychic phenomena and the ability to be able to like move objects and telekinesis and remote view and manifestation with our mind and law of correspondence and law of attraction, and even still, again, you know, being able to activate like psychedelic experiences within our own consciousness through things like breath work that Craig is really familiar with as well. So I think within this reality, you know, if we're talking about being able to kind of like see beyond the simulation, I think that's to be able to kind of pull back the veil to kind of like see the flame that's on the wall that's projecting the shadow. One idea is this basic idea that, you know, this reality, like this reality is like the shadow of like a fifth dimensional shape or something like that. You know, the shadows that we see are shadows of a three-dimensional shape. This reality is a quote unquote shadow of a five-dimensional concept, so to speak. And then even still, it's like a shadow of another shadow. So it keeps going up higher and higher. And I will just say one thing, and then Craig, we'll make sure that your microphone's working. And I did hear it before, so I'm pretty sure it's working. There's a concept called the daemon. And I'll just throw it out there because some of you probably haven't heard this. Not demon, daemon, D-A-E-M-O-N. And the daemon is basically this concept that's referring to kind of like the self that's the true self above this self that's playing the role of this self. So it's basically very similar to when we're talking about simulations as metaphors, when you are playing a video game on your computer and you're playing like an MMORPG, you're playing Warcraft or something like that. Are you your character in Warcraft? No, not necessarily. You're playing that character. Who you are is the person who's at the computer who can get up and walk around and grab a lunch and come back and sit back down on the computer. And if you want to, you can close the game, start it back up, and you can even create a new character. The daemon is an ancient concept. It's not a new concept. It existed way before video games and anything were even a part of culture. And it basically refers to this idea that there is a part of us that's basically the true self that is playing this character, and that true self is actually the part of us that plays the character between, you know, across multiple lifetimes, so to speak. So there is a lot of testimony and evidence and philosophy and history where people are pointing to this idea that there is a part of us that is outside of this simulation, yet still connected to us here now. And, you know, call it the higher self, call it what you want, but the fact that it alludes to the idea that there is something outside of our realms of perception within this reality definitely alludes to the idea that this reality is quote unquote in something. You know, we're like a fish inside a fish tank that's inside of a bigger ocean. What's in the ocean, right? So Craig, go ahead and test your microphone. Let's just make sure that that's working okay, and happy to be able to bring you up and pass it over to you. So Craig, try again, see if we can get that working. And If not, we'll just keep things rolling here. Yeah, Craig, I'm not sure if maybe just unplug or plug back in your headphones or something like that, because I thought it was working. And for those of you in the chat, I know Pinox, I know you're tuned in. If you want to jump up on stage, feel free. Kiwi, if you guys want to jump up. Craig, we're not hearing you just yet, so I'm not exactly sure. Let me just double check, make sure it's not something on my end. So we'll see if we can get Craig's stuff working. We'll try it one more time at least, and see if we can get this sorted out. And
Craig, there's a little notch on your microphone button with a down arrow, and it'll allow you to go into the settings and
yeah, that might
everything.
be it. It might be the input if he's not on his phone. So we'll give it one more time, and then Kristen, I know you're up on stage. We can pass over to you. Craig, let's see if we can get this sorted out. No, it doesn't.
Hello?
Oh, there it is. Okay, perfect. Just in time. Notice how it's just like, oh no, nope, it's not gonna work, and then it literally works. So it's usually that's one of the things that happens in this simulation. As soon as you like let go of the potential of something happening, that's exactly when it happens, right? It's just like, oh, it's never gonna work, and then it works. Anyways, Craig, welcome on stage, dude. We've been rolling into this discussion. A lot of the stuff we talked about before you got here is probably stuff you've heard about, and yeah, feel free to jump right in, dude, and share your thoughts. Is this reality a simulation? What do you think? Go right ahead, Craig, and welcome.
Wow, what an incredible conversation to jump in on. It sounds I'm gonna have to listen to this whole thing back, I think, if it's recorded. Yeah, reality itself, man. I'm very much in the camp of what you were saying, like the dream within a dream. Especially with my studies and work with dream yoga, the lucid dreaming practice, and the idea of when you're in that state of consciousness, that you're in the dream, you're in the illusion, it's constantly all around you, but you still have your point of consciousness as your awareness. Whether you're in the dream and you're asleep, or you're in the dream and you recognize it's a dream, it's still coming from that consciousness, just whether it's, I suppose, raised or a little sleepy. And then coming into the waking state and seeing the external world that we live in is actually no different. We're still projecting our illusions and our thoughts and our wants and our desires, noticing that it is no different really from the dream state. Just how aware are we that we're doing this projection all the time, where a lot of our troubles and our worries are coming from, and our problems just projections. And that's why the self-work is always so important. But that awareness of knowing that you can be aware in the dream or in this world at any point, it just says to me that there has to be something even bigger. Like, is it once you've able to master that state of consciousness awareness to float in between these states, then what comes beyond that? And how do you figure this stuff out? I think journeys with, say, plant medicines or shamanic experiences or breathwork experiences or whatever modalities people use to uncover this massive tapestry of amazingness that we've got called life is just mind-blowing. And it's a joy to try and figure these things out, but there has to be something bigger going on. And listening to these theories there is so great and stimulating for the mind to know that there's more. There's always going to be that awe and that wonder. And is there a point that it's ever out of a simulation? Like, what then exists beyond that? Like, how does life continue to advance? Is it just another set of rules that go on that you then have to break through at a certain point, or learn and adapt and get your own growth and development because of those rules? It's juicy, man. But as far as I am, I'm definitely seeing it from the dream sense that it is another state of a dream, third dimension. So the material or the matter is affected differently to in the fourth and fifth dimension with the dream state, where things are so instant, going off your mind. And the third dimension here is almost like a training ground for that. But we spend more of our time here than in the dream state. So it's like those two simulations, those two realities kind of balance each other out, teaching us different things. But even in this state, if we're asleep and we're walking around with our eyes closed, or we're not seeing the patterns and behaviors we're in, we stay on that level of the simulation, just like the video games. We don't upgrade. We can't get the next weapon. We can't fight that big boss at the end because we've not achieved the level that we're on in the simulation. So yeah, they seem to be a biofeedback from each other. And that's where I'm at with it. Who knows where we're in this simulation.
Absolutely, dude. And again, that's it's kind of like one of those things where it's just like, hey, what do I know? Like to quote our friend Sifu Bagi, it's like, hey, but what do I know, right? It's like everything we're doing here, we're from our very, very limited perception and experience as humans, what we're doing is piecing together pieces of the puzzle, and again, using our interpretation. However, I do feel that if there is truth to this, what's very exciting is to know that this truth is innately inside of us. It's like a part of our being. And that's where, even with experiences like, deep meditation, lucid dreaming, plant medicine, or watching a movie that you really, really resonate, like Truman Show and Matrix, there's a part of you where you're just like, that feels so familiar. There's a resonance to that. Like that was, for me, when I had a very powerful experience with DMT, and this was back in 2009. I literally was like walking around on a beach, and I was like seeing the code of the Matrix. Like it wasn't a concept, it was a direct experience. And I'm like, holy shit, like this is right here. And the most visceral part about that for me, it was, this feels familiar. This feels like something I've always known, and now I'm literally seeing it again, and I still vividly remember it, even though it's, like however many years later. And so I'll just say this, and then, we'll pass over to Kristen, and this is a conversation for all of us to ponder, and we'll keep talking here. We'll keep the conversation going a little bit longer today, opposed to wrapping it up at the hour, but we'll finish it up soon enough. Where, this isn't just a conversation of being able to say like, like, oh, is this reality a simulation? Like that's a great conversation to be able to have. However, with any of these conversations, we also want to be able to initiate that call to action. So if then what, if this is a simulation, what and it's not just, again, using the word simulation. To me, it's like more so like, if we collectively agree that this reality is a beautiful light-based holographic perception magical machine, whatever it is, like it is that, it's incredibly magical, holographic, light-based, love-based, then what do we do within it? And so again, for me, this conversation, the reason why I love this conversation is because it draws us back to our potential. And that's what I hope for. Once you begin to realize it's like, oh, is this reality a dream within a dream? That doesn't mean anything's less meaningful. It actually means that you have more potential within this reality than you have been led to believe. And the societies and the quote unquote powers that be, they will try to convince you that this reality is just what you think it is, or what they tell you to think it is, so to speak. So whatever they're telling you, look the other way. Go down the rabbit hole, Alice, and figure out for yourself. Because when you do that, it's also, again, you being able to reclaim more of your sovereignty, and with it, you literally being able to tap into more of these abilities that are your birthright. And these are abilities of really being able to have like those holy moments, those deep connections, those reverence, deep experiences of love and gratitude and synchronicity and psychic experience and dreaming and astral projection and breath work and all of these things that are a part of this reality that really are your birthright. And so, like maybe this is a quote unquote simulation. And if that's the case, then maybe that means that we're only here for a limited time. And maybe when we die, we exit out of the simulation, quote unquote. So if that's the case, like whatever this is a gift. This is a privilege being here. Maybe Earth in itself is like an isolated simulation, and you come into Earth, and there are people who are waiting to come into Earth. There are souls who are waiting to come into Earth. And so the fact that we're here, like, man, we're on the VIP list right now. Like, we got something special with us here. Let's utilize this opportunity, not just for us, not just to enjoy it, not just to be able to indulge and get sucked into the fascinations, but to literally go through a process of awakening our own consciousness, and thus helping awaken the consciousness of others, alleviating suffering, and really being able to help create this better world where together we're co-creating this dream. So let's co-create a better dream for everyone, so to speak. Kristen, if you would like to be able to go next, I'm happy to be able to pass the microphone over to you, and we'll make sure that we still have time for everybody else to be able to go in. I'm not in a rush. We'll keep this conversation going for a little bit longer. So, Kristen, welcome up to today's circle, and when you're ready, go ahead, share some thoughts. Is this reality a simulation, Kristen? What do you think?
Hello, Soul Family. I'm so grateful for this space and this amazing discussion. And I'm actually really grateful at the particular time I jumped in, we start talking about dreams. And oh, Brendan, with your dream within a dream within a dream, this reality is something that consistently encourages, inspires, and intrigues me. And I think the concept of the dream within a dream, it's the most real concept that I think I've been able to find. Myself, as someone that does like actively practice lucid dreaming, it's been really interesting because one of the things we talk about in lucid dreaming is like, how do you begin lucid dreaming? Like, what can you do in the dream state to be able to bring your awareness, to be able to enlighten your consciousness? And those, like, some of the basic tricks, the very first things that you can start doing is start looking at the small details in the room, like look at the ceiling, look at the clock, look down at your hands, what type of shoes are you wearing, just kind of bringing your awareness to the physical space. And then from there, you can kind of start connecting deeper with like the emotional aspect of it. And so this is a fun little trick that I've been doing quite a while in the dream space, but it wasn't until Brendan mentioned the dream within a dream and being awake within the waking state being its own dream. And so I started trying to apply these practices to my waking state. And I will tell you all that even just taking those tiny little things and doing them in the waking state has brought my awareness to my physical reality heightened times 10 at least. So like, I just think it's really interesting when we talk about reality and if it's a simulation and how do we want to classify it? Do we even want to put limitations on what it is and how it is and what functions? Because really it's limitless and there's millions and trillions of opportunities and possibilities that could be out there. And so I think I'd like to bring it back to that, like that growth, that awareness of like, where are your curiosities bringing you? Like if you're going to jump down that rabbit hole, have fun and enjoy yourself along the way, but try to stay focused on that like grounded center of like, this is doing something for my consciousness. This is raising my vibration or like whatever it may be. Maybe it's bringing you more wisdom in an area or achieving a fascination of some other kind. But I don't know. It's interesting. There's a lot of synchronicities that happen in life, and there's a lot of ways that you can program your reality. And even just like Brendan mentioning on psychedelics, being able to kind of see the digital etching of the matrix or whatever you may want to call it. I know myself not on acid, but anyways, utilizing that substance, being able to kind of see the energy channels and how everything is connected. And so it's like, for me, I think it's something bigger than a simulation. Like simulation is a term you can put on it, but I feel like it's like, if there was a way for it to be like a soul creating this thing that perpetuates out into the world. So it's like you're experiencing something that's been created by yourself as a collective because you're connected to all things. But anyways, that's I appreciate you all. Thank you so much for the space. And yeah, I think I could go, but I will pass the talking stick, and thank you all for letting me share.
Thank you, Kristen. Yeah, a lot to be able to explore within this conversation, and I can feel us kind of like reaching some sort of consensus where, again, it's like whether it is the word simulation isn't what's important here. I think it's just about being able to acknowledge that this reality is not what we think it is, or not what we've been led to believe. So this is an invitation to really begin to open our consciousness and to open our own personal relationship with what this reality is. And that's okay. You will have your relationship, I'll have my relationship. And I think, again, as Kristen was saying, and I'll just say this, and whoever wants to go next, go ahead and blink your microphone so I know who I'm passing it to next. It's important that whatever we perceive this reality is to be able to develop a healthy relationship with it. And I think oftentimes there's some very powerful ideas that we can sort of get sucked into. And so we need to kind of find a way to relate to our understanding of this reality that brings us back to a place of empowerment. And so that's something that, again, I invite all of us to be able to do. So if that means, hey, you know what, like this reality is some sort of like psychedelic, hyper light-based matrix of some sort, but within this, I can also activate my abilities to be able to bend spoons with my mind, manifest my dreams, and experience the reality of this love within this present moment, then yeah, absolutely. Like I can say that based on my best guess, like there's several things within this reality that, I'm okay with letting go of the possibility that it may or may not be XYZ, and this is where you start to get into concepts where it's interesting when you start talking about simulation theory and stuff like that. And people are just like, oh, okay, you know what? Maybe this reality is a simulation. And then you start putting in other topics where it's just like, well, it's like, well, what do you think about the shape of the Earth? Is this reality a globe? Is it something flat, or is it something in between? Is it something more dynamic than either? And then it's interesting to observe like our attachment to the stability of feeling like we know what we know. However, like honestly, like, and this is a conversation for another day. It's like, I wouldn't be surprised if this reality is not just as simple as being a globe. I would not be surprised if this reality had dimensions within it, in the concept of like Hollow Earth and Agartha. And I would not be surprised if this reality was something akin to like a petri dish, or if there was like some sort of firmament over this or something like that, XYZ. Like any of these ideas, like whether it is or it isn't, you know, it opens up my mind to infinite possibilities, but it doesn't take away the reality of how I navigate it here and now. It just opens me up in a humble way to be able to know that this reality is more than meets the eye. And that's and there's a mystery to it. Honestly, I would be excited about the idea if, you know, down the road, or just be like, oh yeah, you know, it turns out it was something quite different. It turns out that we're actually in some sort of like cosmic petri dish, on some sort of infinite ice plane, and we're just one petri dish amongst a plane of infinite petri dishes, and there's been other petri dishes with like other past civilizations. So that's not even my theory. Like that's an actual concept that exists, and there is possibilities that it might be true, so to speak, but you know, maybe there's multiple truths, so who's to say? The important thing is to be able to keep asking questions and to think for yourself, find your own relationship to the truth. And like Campton said, maybe truth is a spectrum. So let's keep things rolling here. We'll get close to wrapping it up in the next little bit. Sonny, thank you again for joining in. I know Sonny had to be able to jump off, but Campton or Craig, if you guys want to be able to jump in next, feel free to do so. And Kiwi, if you want to jump up, or Wheezy, if you want to jump up, feel free to raise your hand, and we'll put a few more minutes on the clock. So Campton, go ahead, pass it back to you.
Sure, awesome. So yeah, you're absolutely right. We can discover these internal truths with the subjective experiences, either in plant medicine, meditation, or any altered state you can achieve with breath work. And absolutely, dreams and astral projection and things like that, those are in fact also states of meditation, states of consciousness, which we can return to at any time. So essentially, this physical body is the earth. It's part of the earth that you kind of picked up with your electromagnetic body, or the astral body, or the prana, chi, kundalini body. And that is what we slowly start to loosen from the kinks of the nervous system with meditation and breath work and yoga and everything like that, even cold showers. Anything that physiologically upgrades the body will help your nerves and your blood flow incredibly, and therefore increase your intelligence, because you're able to ascertain more of the light, right? Everything is the electromagnetic spectrum, which can also be said to be the spectrum of truth. And that's just what we see in the 3D reality is less than 1% of what there is. So in this world of colors, it's also the world of wisdom and time, because there needs to be a flow of movement so that the wisdom can apply to that context, the context of a continuous amount of time, with the central story being your human life unfolding into time. So all these practices, when done every single day, will slowly start to acclimate you to higher and higher dimensions of truth. You'll be forced to reconcile with all of your fears. You'll be forced to reconcile with all of your anger and your unjust pain that has been dealt to you by the tragedy that is the drama of this dense form of heaven, right? I kind of had a difficulty expressing that, but I hope my point got across. Anyway, yeah, you're learning about the mechanics of consciousness through these subjective experiences, and the physical body is definitely part of this. It can be understood. You know, when I flick my arm, it hurts. Oh, there was a sensation. I was definitely aware of that. So there are reasonably reliable mechanics of consciousness, and it's very hard to exit this life, right? You have to kill this body, which is hard in itself, and you have to damage this body so that your spirit cannot hold on to it, right? That system of intelligence crumbles. And yeah, so I want you guys to have these experiences. I don't want you to be afraid to have these experiences. And I want you to remember that your intent is everything. Your intent is what directs this energy. And your intent is what, like wiggling your finger, right? Is the same mechanic as like thinking a thought. It's lighting up certain synapses in part of your physical flesh, and you're navigating your intent and energy to that area within this dimension. You can also navigate that energy into another person's mind. Hey, telepathy, cool. Quantum physics, all right, we're all one field of loving energy and awareness. Sweet, that kind of lines up. That makes sense. See, I'm more of like a practical spiritualist. I like doing quote, instantly gratifying techniques to enhance my consciousness. That's like why I like the cold shower so much, is I'm being confronted with the need to do something that I don't want to do anyway. And then doing that actually creates the neurological structures that allow me to do that in any area of life, right? So getting into that cold shower will help it be easier for anything that's at a commensurate level of I don't want to, but I have to anyway, which is like essentially the majority of life. But once you actually do it, it becomes easier because your brain knows that it's easy and that your fears were sort of invalid, right? And they can only be invalid within the context of time and color and things like that. So I wish that for all of you. Train your consciousness. Do this every single day. Group that light inside of you into a vehicle that can move outside and experience higher dimensions of truth and reality, and just see it for yourself. That's the science. That's the way. So thanks.
That is the way. Beautiful. Well said, Campton. And absolutely. Again, I think that's important for us to be able to move our attention towards, is the idea of like, okay, this reality is maybe a simulation. It's something more, whatever the case may be. Let's craft ourselves within it. Let's evolve ourselves within it. Let's refine ourselves within it. Let's heal ourselves within it. Let's become the best version of ourselves that we can be, to be able to navigate this reality with an optimized grace and a level of efficiency when it comes to being able to interact and create and again be able to make a difference in this world, to be able to serve others. So I see it as, again, something that ignites my passion to be able to say like, whoa, okay, maybe this reality is very video game-ish. And if that's the case, just like any other video game, I'm here to level up. I'm here to refine my character. I'm here to unlock new abilities. I'm here to become who I am destined to be. I'm here to be able to reach that level 33 and beyond, and to fight the boss fights, and to be able to like quest with my friends, and to be able to find some amazing treasures and some awesome like dungeons and stuff like that. Like, that's what I'm here to do. This reality is so incredibly magnificent and detailed and beautiful and perception based. And I'll just say this, and then Craig and Kristen, if you want to jump in with some closing thoughts, we'll do that, and then we'll get ready to wrap it up. There's another metaphor that I like to be able to use, where going back to the concept of it being a simulation, that I feel fits quite well, is the idea of thinking of this as being like a stage play, and this reality is a stage play, and like we are characters on the stage of life, and sometimes we do this where we wear masks and we wear outfits and we present ourselves and we perform these roles. However, as soon as we step off stage, we kind of like take off our hat, take off our outfit, and then we say to ourselves, deep breath, relax. That was fun. I can't wait until next time. I can't wait to be able to play the experience of this human existence, which, again, based on even like Gnostic teachings and a lot of spiritual and metaphysical and religious beliefs, that's exactly what they say. They basically say that, there is levels to who we are. There is like the like kind of like the egoic identity, which is really just like a suit that you wear. But then there's like the pure essence of who you are, like the higher essence, the daemon again of who you are. And who you are is this soul, and this soul is, again, the character, the being that is playing these characters between multiple lifetimes. So what can you do to not only be able to embody the character that you're playing on stage, but also to be able to understand on a deeper level who you are behind the curtain? And I think that's an exciting journey, to know that there is a much bigger part of yourself for you to be able to discover. Who you think you are is only a fraction of who you really are, and allow that mystery to kind of open you up to more of your potential as well. So there's a couple other things I want to be able to say before we get wrapped up, but Craig, I can pass it over to you if you'd like to be able to go in, and we'll get close to wrapping this up. Jedi, I can see you on the Discord. If you want to jump in just with a couple minutes left, that's totally cool, and feel free to raise your hand. And Campton, thank you again, and we'll be done in probably less than 10 minutes. So Craig, go right ahead.
Hello, is it mic still working?
Still working.
Excellent. Yeah, I think it's a big thing what you and Campton have both said, really, about that self-exploration. And there's so many interesting things that are going on in the world, from different religions, different stories, even what inspires us. And just hearing you two both speak, 'cause I've been working with a lot of people recently, and there seems to be a lot of mental health issues, especially based off lockdown and the reality of the world that people are seeing from that perspective. And it's almost just pushed my search off a little bit for my love and my interest in the mystical and in the further out thoughts that, for me, makes life worth living, to continue to investigate, to continue to find awe and know what inspires you and moves you forward, and what you want to discover while we are here for this short period of time that we've got, at this very important moment of history in life, where we are and the choices we're having to make about what we're going to do going forward, and the way the world's going. So yeah, big love to you both and everybody in here, really, for having these conversations and for igniting that spark when the Maya or the Matrix can sometimes pull us back in. It's having those support systems and knowing what it is that really deeply inspired and interested to discover about life, and everything you guys are mentioning is exactly where my heart lies, you know. So yeah, big love to you all. Thank you for the conversation.
Thank you, Craig. And again, I'll just plant this seed real quick for one thing that was passed on to me many moons ago. And Jedi, I can see you raising your hand. We'll bring you up, and then Chris, and we can pass over to you just with some closing thoughts. Is that oftentimes we like to be able to identify ourselves with like labels. People will ask you, be like, "Oh, are you religious? What's your religion?" Da, 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 da. My simple answer in response to that, and this was something that was passed on to me by someone else, was basically to be able to hold the identity or the hat, the context of being a seeker. That is what we are. If you choose to be, if you choose to resonate with that. And a seeker is one who seeks, who discovers, who admits that things are changing, ever changing throughout your reality. So again, it's kind of something that we talked about in the tarot broadcast a few weeks ago, or last week, a few days ago. Basically, this very, very powerful idea. And this was another quote passed on to me by a friend. And the quote very simply is, believe nothing, see everything. Beliefs in themselves can often become limiting. They can prevent you from actually seeing and understanding other realities and concepts and understandings of this reality through your perception. Your beliefs will actually prevent you from being able to open your mind to new realms of understanding. So not to say beliefs are bad, but hold your beliefs in a mindful way. Is your belief serving you, and are you flexible to being able to let go of those beliefs, and can you open up your beliefs to new beliefs that again can kind of like help you understand a little bit more about not just this reality, but also your relationship to it and your potential within it. So that for me at the end of the day is the most important thing. Do we need to fully understand what this reality is? No, not necessarily. Can we study through direct experience, direct gnosis, a better understanding of what our relationship is like within this reality? Yes. Whether or not you know exactly what this reality is, that's one thing. But what you can experience within this reality, seek that. Figure that out. Practice lucid dreaming, practice meditation, practice breath work, whatever the case may be. These things are here for you to be able to experience, and then thus in turn, again, kind of just awakening you to more of the possibility within this quote unquote simulation. Jedi, we're going to bring you up on stage. Campton, I can see you in the Discord. If you want to jump up on here real quick, that's totally cool. And I know a couple of people stepped down. Pinox, thank you so much. Kristen, thank you so much for joining in. And Jedi, let me just bring you up here and we'll just test your microphone. And again, we'll just get close to wrapping it up shortly. And thank you again, everyone. This has been an awesome conversation and one of many more still to come. So Jedi, we're just going to bring you up on stage. We'll just give a moment to be able to test the microphone, and shout out to those of you on YouTube as well. Seeing you guys' comments there. For those of you on Instagram and TikTok, reminder, if you click the link in my profile, you can tune in on YouTube. And for those of you on Twitch as well. So, Jedi, I'm not sure if it's working for you, but if it is, feel free to see if we can calibrate that. Mason, did you want to jump in? Any closing thoughts? I know this is an exciting topic for all of us. So Mason, seeing you, I'll bring you up on stage, and then Jedi, if we're able to sort that out, you might have to leave and come back in, Jedi. Sometimes it glitches out. The simulation is glitching, but we'll see if we can get it figured out. So yeah, Jedi, try leaving the chat, like leave the stage and then come back in. Sometimes it glitches, or next time. Okay, all right, totally cool. Mason, we're going to bring you up on stage. Let's see if we can get this working. And then after Mason, if there's anybody else, that's fine. Other than that, I'll do some closing thoughts. So sweet. Mason, go ahead. Test your microphone real quick.
Testing 1,
Perfect.
2, 3.
Awesome. Mason, happy to be able to have you here. Good to hear from you again. And go ahead and share. Is this reality a simulation, Mason? What do you think?
Well, I saw the notification pop up on my phone when you were going live on Instagram, and when I saw the topic, I was pondering like back and forth in my head, like, ooh, I totally could add to this. And then I'd go and I'd almost like feel that like shadow aspect of myself, like, oh, like trying to get myself nervous about talking, like the possibility of changing the simulation or life that we're experiencing, which I think is probably part of a simulation, but once again, it's the concept, like it's a belief, however you want to put it. Each little decision in our life is going to affect our final outcome, and I just wanted to come on here and put my own little glitch in the matrix for myself, if this is reaching like higher levels of consciousness right now, or if it's tapping into something that is greater than me, or what we can even fathom as being reality. I want to like put my part in and put my 2 cents. So I just wanted to come on here and say just like a little word of advice if anyone else like is feeling that in any call in their life, to just follow it and see where it takes you, because it could just be like one little decision that is a glitch and it could take you to places you'd never imagined. So I just want to come on here and make my own little point in the simulation and level up the character a little bit. It's been a while since I've talked on here, so it feels good to be back. Thank you.
Awesome, Mason. Happy to be able to have you join in when you can, and yeah, I agree. You know, like that's the thing, right? For those of you who are tuned in right now, if you are listening to this broadcast, there's a piece, there's curiosity within your heart, and I think it's important for us to be able to listen to that curiosity and to follow that curiosity, because the universe really loves curiosity, and it loves the courage to be curious, so to speak. So, you know, like I said, for some people, if they choose not to question this reality, if they choose to take the quote unquote blue pill, then they'll probably just kind of continue along, and they may literally go throughout their entire experience not really having too much of a metaphysical perspective on things, and that's totally fine. Like, that's not less or more. Like, that's the thing. Like, it like understanding that this reality is not as cut and dry as it means to be, as it appears to be, it doesn't make you like more important. Like, that doesn't change the fact that, you know, like your perception is equally as valid as anybody else who chooses to perceive a reality from a less dynamic way, so to speak. Because I think oftentimes, like, we have to understand, and this is where kind of, you know, it gets into layers on this topic, and we'll get close to wrapping it up. Last call on anybody else who did just want to be able to come up on stage. We'll just go through one last time for anybody else who wanted to be able to join. Lizzie, I know you're just joining us now, so if you did want to come up, that's fine. But again, you know, within this experience of this reality, one thing that was a very powerful piece of perception that I eventually just came to hold was this idea that, you know, there are some souls within this reality that choose not to awake and choose not to awaken. So, you know, if we're thinking of quote unquote awakening within the dream, again, you know, it's kind of like this idea of being able to awaken to the illusions over our eyes, seeing through the veil. Things aren't quite as they seem. But within the process of awakening to this idea that this reality may be a quote unquote simulation, as empowering as it is, it's undeniable that for a lot of people, it can also be very challenging, disjointing, painful, uncomfortable. And, you know, you think of the concepts that we see in the stories of the Matrix, where, you know, Neo gets unplugged from the Matrix, and within the first time where he's adjusting, he's like, oh, I can't handle this is too much, I'm gonna pop. And even in the Truman Show, you know, he begins to realize that his reality is simulation. He's like, oh my god, my entire reality has been a lie, what's real, I don't know what to believe anymore. And it becomes like very chaotic for him, but eventually you kind of move through that process. And so, you know, it's understandable that for a lot of souls here on this planet, they will actually make the choice not to necessarily awaken to the idea that this reality is more than what it seems to be, and that's totally okay. You know, that's totally fine. So I think what we want to be able to do is continue to listen to the curiosity within our heart, understanding that that is a part of our soul path that is uniquely chosen. And if we choose to do that, it will continue to reveal and speak to us through synchronicities and spirit messages and omens and dream time and meditation, and perhaps it will allow us to really begin to understand a little bit more of how to be able to create within this reality with more intention. I think when you begin to understand that this reality is some sort of holographic based matrix, it really allows you to come back to this deeper understanding through direct experience, that this reality reflects back to you what you put out. You know, law of attraction, think of it like that. So there's many layers to this topic for us to be able to explore, and I think it will just naturally lead into many more conversations that we'll be able to continue to have here within this topic. And yeah, I'll just create the opportunity here. If there was anybody else who did just want to be able to jump on stage for one last, even just closing gratitude, feel free to do that now. And if not, that's totally fine. And we'll wrap up the circle in the next minute. So Lizzie, we'll bring you up on stage. And Lizzie, I know I'm not sure if you heard the earlier conversation. We've been diving pretty deep here, but please, by all means, we'll put a few more minutes on the clock and welcome Lizzie, and go ahead and share. Is this reality a simulation? What would you like to share from your perspective? Welcome, Lizzie.
Hey, can you hear me all right?
Yeah, sounds good.
Okay, cool. Hey guys and gals. I don't want to take away from, not that I would do that, but yeah, unfortunately I wasn't able to join till just now, so I'll have to go back and listen to everyone's thoughts. But it's just, you know, another divine synchronicity that you guys are having this discussion today. I was inspired by a couple people within the Paradigm Shift Central. Shout out to Kristen and Johnny Bloom. I know, and they talk about the Akashic field. I'm not sure if anybody had mentioned that specifically today. And the book that I'm reading is by Irvin Laszlo, and how he describes the universe. The one word that he uses is that it's a holograph. So I think that this is insanely interesting, and as I'm, navigating my journey and reading this book, now I'm definitely sure that I'm like I'm an Akashic agent, which is essentially ushering in a world where we're more balanced between masculine and feminine, and essentially bringing the dream of our lives to life, right? So yeah, there's definitely a lot to dive in here, but definitely really appreciate you guys making the time to have this epic discussion today. Sorry I couldn't join earlier. And yeah, I think that those are my thoughts for now. So thank you again.
Thank you, Lizzie. Thank you for joining in, and yeah, excited to be able to allow you for you to be able to go back and hear this. And I'm sure there'll probably be some synchronicities with other stuff we said. And again, that's the thing, right? Like here within this quote unquote simulation, within this hologram, we are the universe speaking to itself. We're just sacred mirrors, and through that circle that we create here, that gives the opportunity for consciousness to become more conscious of itself. And that's what we're doing here. We're creating a circle, we're creating a round table, and we're putting these pieces of puzzle on the table, and we're trying to create a bigger picture, and we're trying to create a bigger understanding. And we owe it to this world in some degree or another to be able to expand our consciousness. And with that, also to be able to expand our creativity, and to expand our compassion, and to expand our confidence and our potential to really be able to pick and choose what we want this reality to be. Again, there's a lot of institutions and programs happening out there where they're basically trying to tell you this is what reality is, don't question it or else. However, I think once we begin to realize that this reality is much more malleable, we begin to understand that there is a lot more choice, a lot more freedom, a lot more sovereignty, and each one of us, we're literally like Neo waking up in the Matrix, dreamers awakening up within the dream. So let us continue to put that energy towards co-creating the best dream together, and really, really being able to step into our abilities here within this simulation, and inviting you to keep connecting those dots and understand the dynamics of what this means. What is the dynamics of the soul? What is the dynamics of the mind? What is the dynamics of the dream space? How do we bring things into our life? What is the dynamic of frequency, of the mind-heart resonance, of the power of emotions, of the power of intentions? All of these things, these are all variables within this quote-unquote simulation, variables within the system, variables within this matrix. And the word matrix literally just means system. And I will just say this, and then we'll finish it up for today. Even the word matrix, a lot of people, you've heard me say this before, the word matrix, a lot of people, they use it almost in like a derogatory sense, where they basically say like, oh, the matrix of society, it's keeping us chained and stuff like that. And I understand where they're coming from. That's not wrong. However, the word matrix, again, literally meaning system, actually comes from the word matriarch. And the word matrix, before the movies even existed, in its own right, literally means womb. So if we are in a quote unquote matrix, which we are in some system or another, we are also in this womb. And so if we are in this womb, then it gets very exciting, because what do wombs do? They birth something. So what is this matrix birthing? This matrix is birthing souls. This matrix is birthing consciousness. This matrix is birthing experiences that will help it see more of itself. So for me, that becomes a very exciting thing. And that's why, again, I think even within the great TikTok awakening of 2020, to see so many people naturally opening up their minds to this reality, to this possibility, to this question, because that's the thing. It's not even like it's the question that drives you, Neo. It's not even like the truth is in the question. It's not necessarily in the answer. It's through the quest. The question, the quest ion, that you eventually begin to discover the truth that has always been inside of you, whatever that truth may be. So it's been amazing within the past year to see so many people opening up their minds to the possibility of this simulation. And it just goes to show how many viral videos there have been on TikTok talking about this, where a lot of people are just kind of now shifting into that realm of possibility where they're just like, you know what? That's not too far-fetched. Maybe that might be the case. And honestly, based on the alternative, where in some cases it's just like, well, it's either that or it's almost kind of simpler and kind of boring. Not to say it is boring, but it's like, man, if we open up the possibility that this reality is a simulation, then we are also opening up to the possibility that there is a lot of excitement still to discover. And that's the way I choose to see it. I am still learning what this reality is. I acknowledge that it's not quite what it appears to be. I don't fully know what it is. However, like you, I am seeking, I am learning from experience. I am taking knowledge and inspiration through things I can come across, through having conversations with my friends, being here with you guys, and together we build a bigger picture, and thus in turn deepen our relationship with it, and deepen our relationship as God, consciousness, soul, spirit, whatever you want to call it, and really allow ourselves to, at the end of the day, land at home in a place of gratitude, where it's like, whoa, I don't fully understand what this reality is. However, I am grateful to be able to live within the mystery of it, and to be able to experience the joys and the bliss and the uncertainty and the magic and the journey of being able to grow within it and to be birthed through it, so to speak. So again, there are layers to this, and we just invite each and every single one of you here to, as with any of these paradigm shift circle discussions, continue this. Go ask your friends, ask them, like literally ask people who may not be quote unquote spiritually awakened, and ask them, see what they have to say, because I think within each and every single one of us, there is a knowing. Whether or not we fully give ourselves permission to open ourselves up to that knowing, it's inside of us. There is a spark inside each and every single one of us, where if you ask them the right question, if you hold the right space, every single one of us will be like, you know what? Maybe there is something a little bit different. Maybe there is something more to this reality than I've been led to believe. And see where that conversation goes, and do your best to be able to bring it back to a place of empowerment and excitement. And yeah, it's a very, 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 very exciting time to be able to see this collective awakening in consciousness. And so grateful for each and every single one of you for being a part of it. So with that said, I'll conclude us with today's I'll conclude today's circle. Again, just thanking everyone with so much gratitude for those of you tuned in live on YouTube, for those of us who have joined us here within the circle. For those of us who were on the circle discussion today, you'll find the links for them in the YouTube info. So be sure to follow all the creators. Shout out to Campton, Sunny, Craig, Kristen, Mason, and Lizzie. And yeah, be sure to tune in for more Paradigm Shift Circle discussions Wednesdays at 4 p.m. EDT. You can check out the recordings on Spotify, Paradigm Shift Radio, which I encourage you to do. There's a lot of good discussions there that you can go back and check out if you're a little bit new to the community. And again, feel free to join into our Discord server, where you can connect into future discussions plus other events happening within the community from our members. And feel free to check out the Patreon. That's where you can join our Patreon membership to get further involved with our exclusive community events. $11 a month helps support the ongoing creation of these spaces for the community, and gives you the additional available options and benefits to be able to be in a pretty awesome community, and yeah, to be able to connect with other seekers and conscious creators. So with that said, we are ready to be able to conclude it here. All the links that you need are in the info for this video. Please feel free to share this with your friends and go continue this conversation. Talk to some people, and yeah, go watch The Matrix. Go watch Free Guy. We didn't even talk about Free Guy, that new movie with Ryan Reynolds. Go watch The Truman Show. Give them references, and yeah, just keep asking questions, and join us back here again for some more paradigm shifting, metaphysical, mind and heart expanding discussion within the Paradigm Shift Circle. So with that said, my name is Mystic Spider-Man, Brendan, and Skull Babylon, finishing it off here, and ready to be able to move about my day and to explore more of the simulation together. So I'll see you out there. As always, keep it shifty. Much love, and welcome to the future. Thank you guys as always. Have a great day. Peace and love.